Awesome. Welcome, everyone. I'm here with my friend Billy Hennessey. We've known each other actually for over a decade. Did some nightlife promotion stuff together.
Back in the fist bumping days.
Back in the fist bumping Purple and Proud days. But Billy, maybe you can give sort of a Coles Notes version to everyone who's watching. Who's Billy?
Yeah, so I grew up in the east coast of Canada, in Prince Edward Island, in a town of 30,000 people, and came from a very middle-class family, and went to Western, not knowing one person. So I've had a number of different business ventures. You know, when I was 12 years old, I had a lawn care business. I had a bit of a promotion business while at university. We then created a brand called St. Party's Day and licensed it to Budweiser, who took it across Canada, and then Carlsberg, who took it across North America. Had an online seafood business, had a 30-day waste removal business during the Toronto garbage strike. But today, I spend 75% of my time manufacturing industrial chemical solutions. I've bought 3 companies in the last 5 years, kind of 4 companies. And I spend 20 or 25% of my time building a company called the Entrepreneurship Society, which helps business owners, you know, like myself, like tech founders, scale their business and take them to the next level.
Yeah. And that's actually how we reconnected not too long ago at one of your events. It was a sick event.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
So just to take it back to sort of the target audience here, someone who's sitting in your spot. Let's say they're not full-blown entrepreneur from the time they were 12 running businesses, but climbed sort of that corporate ladder. What, if you were in their shoes, what would you be looking for or trying to sort of have an introspective on for them to actually be able to decide if that entrepreneurial path is for them?
So I think there's, I categorize entrepreneurs in 2 very distinctly different buckets. One, there's the entrepreneur who goes and gets career experience, becomes an expert, you know, works for the man, builds relationships, and proves him or herself in that industry. Takes those relationships and goes and does it themselves, either on a smaller scale or in some cases on a larger scale, and does it better. And I think there's some pros with doing it that way, some pros that I'm actually lacking given I did it the exact opposite way. But I also think there's some major risks with going about it that way, which, you know, we certainly can talk about later. The other type of entrepreneur, which is who I am, is, you know, from day one, I came out of business school $50,000 in debt. And I have figured out, and this is what I always say to the 20 and 25-year-olds who want to go out on their own, the first thing you need to figure out is how to put food on the table for yourself. You need to know that, you know, hell or high water, you can sustain yourself regardless of what's going on in that business. And the question I often ask when people ask me the same question you just asked me was, what you need to ask yourself is, if business wasn't going well, what do you need to have? Can you get rid of your private membership? Can you get rid of your penthouse condo? Can you get rid of the flashy vehicle? Can you get rid of the designer clothing? Is the most important thing you need in your life, can you even let go of your significant other, is the most important thing you need in your life for your business to be successful? And if there's any or even a lot of those things you're not willing to let go, maybe entrepreneurship the way I went about it isn't for that individual.
That's interesting. Definitely. So, I mean, owning your own future has its pros, but it's obviously you're taking all the risk as well. So what would you say would be the cons of the alternative then, where you're kind of hedging your risk by learning on somebody else's dime?
The cons are the golden spoon, or call it the golden handcuffs, which we all have. You work your way up. If it's an industrial type company, maybe a cap out at 6 figures or $150,000. So maybe there's less of the golden handcuffs, but take banking as a great example. Take legal as an example, or take agency world or marketing world. You get up there and you're making silly money, unless you're waiting till you're 50 or even 60. Chances are you're not transferring relationships and paying yourself a base salary, whatever it is, $250,000, $500,000 from day one. And it's mentally demoralizing
because you had that standard already.
Yeah, even if you have a significant nest egg, even if it's millions of dollars, and you have to go that first 18 months where your personal income statement has negative cash flow, you're going to be focusing more on that than focusing on the business.
That's interesting. So ironically, if you actually weren't making significant money, you actually have a competitive advantage because you're hungry and you don't have the counterbalance with what have I done.
There's really something to be said about eating what you kill. Now that said, I truly think there are some positives to going about it the opposite way that I've went about it. I've never been involved with a company that I worked for that I saw grow from smaller stages to a large company. I didn't build relationships and credibility and make mistakes on somebody else's dollar. When I make mistakes today,
it hurts more.
It hurts more. Also, because I didn't work for the bank or a lot of people who are doing similar things to what I'm doing but leveraging other people's money, acquiring companies with search funds. I didn't work private equity. So it isn't as natural for me to think about how to leverage other people's money to scale my business. It doesn't come as naturally.
Got that. Okay. So for someone who's sitting on the fence today and is really trying to decide for themselves, golden handcuffs or not, and have some entrepreneurial tendencies, what would they need to do to validate for them if this is the right time or the right opportunity? What have you seen?
I think it's a tough question, to be honest. I think, pre-marriage is ideal, unless you're going to wait until, assuming you're going to have kids after the kids come, until, it's average age of late 40s, 50s, because at this age, we're doing it right now. It's no big deal to work 60, 80 hours. I think, when you're accelerating in your career. I think, when you get to your early 30s, if you're really good at what you do and you have entrepreneurial blood, people are tipping you off. Entrepreneurial companies are trying to recruit you as a junior partner. Your clients are saying, hey, if you ever went out on your own, we're with you, not with the big name brand. I think there's subtle signs.
Yeah, totally get that.
But I think, it's a very scary, life-altering decision. So part of me thinks the answer to your question is don't wait till tomorrow.
Just embrace the fear and the unknown.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd add is don't get caught up in those golden handcuffs. Don't live that life. If there's very few business owners who are really successful who at the end of the day are doing it for the flash. There's very few. A lot of them end up into the flash, but they didn't start that way.
So the driver for it is a long-term play, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it can't be about the money. It's always about the money, but the money to fuel the growth to have more of the business.
Got that.
As opposed to having the materialistic things.
Got that. Got that. That's actually good insight, because there's similarities with a lot of the other people that we ask those questions to on, the fear is always there. There's that emotional trigger, but how you handle that and why you're doing it is really the underlying decisions that seems to be the consistent pattern for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, and there's nothing wrong with wanting materialistic things, but I think a true test is, when you are in business for yourself, or when you've got a strong corporate job and you have some free cash flow.
Yeah.
What's getting you excited at night? Is it the flashy Porsche, or is it buying the truck to do more business, or hiring the CTO or the chief marketing officer to take your business to the next level?
And if it is the Porsche, what does that mean?
It likely means your growth may be inhibited. There comes a point when you have so much free cash flow that how much money you spend on those personal things, doesn't impact the business. Yeah, nearly at the same rate that it does in the early stages. But if you look at, with the exception of tech, because tech, the money's coming from venture, and typically the founders, not always, typically the founders have very little actual cash invested in it. But if you look at the bricks and mortar type companies, all of the guys who are filthy, stinking rich, tell the stories of mortgaging their house, sleeping on friends' couches, basically beg, pleading, and stealing to, have the cash flow to make payroll to get to the next level.
Yep. Those are the...
And it's funny because, generally speaking, I'm a frugal guy. But after we acquired our second company, I had a bit of FOMO kick in and said, I haven't seen the world, I haven't traveled, I'm not living in a nice place, I don't drive a flashy vehicle, etc. And I started for about 2 years spending stupid money, or what I consider stupid money, a couple $100,000 on things I've come back and realized I just don't need. I don't need to go to Europe for a month every year. I don't need to drive a $100,000 vehicle. I don't need, to live in $1 million townhouse. And not only have I learned that I don't need those things, but what I've learned is they're all true distractions, keeping me from being happy from the success where I really need success in life.
And that's deep, because I think a lot of people, the flash kind of blinds them to the underlying thing that's going to keep them going to win the marathon, because that's what it is. It's a marathon mentality.
Yeah. And I own and operate 2 distinct businesses. The Entrepreneurship Society, all of our functions where I last ran into you, they're in the financial district. They're at flashy law firms, flashy accounting firms, Shopify's office, Twitter's office, etc. But 9 to 5, I'm out dealing with blue collar industrial type workers. And I had what was probably a $200,000 very sexy contract in the chemical side fall on my lap. And I made the mistake of showing up to see the customer in a white Range Rover. And I'm convinced to this day that's 60% of the reason why we didn't end up closing the deal.
Wow.
Yeah. I now drive to work a Ford Edge. It's got a crack in the bumper and a crack in the windshield. And I've had, I hope Minister of Transport doesn't hear this, but I've had 48 pails, worth $2,300, weighing however many thousand of pounds in the back of it to deliver it to a customer.
Take that for all the Ford haters. I love that. So what would you say, I have a lot of respect for people that can build real businesses, because I think a lot of times or entrepreneurship has become sort of a buzzword, and it gets clouded on the fundamentals. You know, people have this lottery mentality that I'm going to build the next unicorn. And, you know, for at least for me, entrepreneurship means being able to run a real business, which means cash flow, which means being able to make money at the end of the day. So what would you say is your biggest sort of learning / experience, maybe from a hard knocks, in building a traditional business?
We've learned a lot.
That also means we failed a lot.
We failed a lot. We failed more than I care to admit.
We're still here.
We're still here, and we're growing. Two big learnings: relationships,
Yeah.
relationships. But the second one is, there's some industries, and I'm in one of them, where there just isn't as much room for innovation and creativity. Doesn't mean there's no room, but there isn't as much. You don't necessarily make money through outsmarting the competition.
You mean from creating more value by outsmarting the competition, or
through necessarily making decisions that are going to lead to exponential growth? You beat the competition by working hard, working harder than the competition, hiring the right people, looking after them, motivating those people, and doing the little things right. We spent our first 3 years trying to come up with new products, green formulas, reinventing this, reinventing that, discontinuing that product. And what we've learned is just do the little things. If someone's in a jam, get them their product at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night. Respond to the email on a Saturday. Save them a little bit of money. Add them value in other ways.
which comes back to your first point of relationships.
Yeah. Just do the little things. Do the little things.
That's interesting, yeah. And I think that applies to any business. Even if you have hyper growth or innovation or disruption, I think to sustain that, it still has to come down to the fundamentals, which is you're dealing with people.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, everyone's got a million ideas. It is all about execution.
100%.
All about execution.
Absolutely.
You know, I used to spend Saturday afternoons before I bought into the chemical company. I knew I wanted to. My theory was I didn't want to go where anyone smart like yourself was. So I wasn't going into tech. I wasn't going into finance.
Coming from the guy that finished Ivy.
I wasn't going near Bay Street.
Yeah.
I was going into a bricks and mortar company that had succession issues that hopefully no one from our generation wanted to be in. And so we did the first deal, and
how did you get financing on a deal like that straight out of school?
So the other ventures I had from school.
Got it. That's right.
We had made living frugal, had paid down my student debt, had $500,000 in the bank, bought the first one. The bank came in for half of it, and then we just kept levering up based on cash flow to buy more. Got it.
So the lesson there, really, it's not how much money you make, it's how much the net cash flow is making.
Yeah. It's all about, the balance sheet and having cash to do things.
Absolutely. I was having this conversation actually with my accountant, who is a serial entrepreneur himself, had the similar trigger where he started, you know, in the corporate world like me, but realized he wasn't going to be happy. And he actually owns an accounting firm here downtown, but also heavily into real estate. And for him, it's never even about where to find the money. It's does the investment make sense? Because there'll always be a way to just leverage more money to make more money make more money. But when you have that mindset and you remove the emotion out of it, then it just becomes a system.
And you know, good on him, because it's not always easy to remove the emotion.
Mm-hmm. No, that's, I think, the biggest challenge. Mindset's 90% of it.
Yeah.
If we were computers, we'd be done.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but that's the game, right? Once you realize it's all in your head, you know, there's going to be ups and downs. It's how you react to it, and when you finally internalize it, then it becomes a game, because you're not going to die.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, and I guess this kind of ties into relationships, but it gets easier. You know, a debate I often have is, you know, seeing the private equity guys. Are you better off getting into one industry and you know, essentially doing it for life, or, you know, diversifying and being in multiple industries? And I'm a little bit contradictory, you know, owning two different companies. But I sincerely believe if you can get in and out of the same industry, you know, maybe you sell off parts, maybe you exit and come back in when your non-compete's up, or you go work with someone else. But I sincerely believe, you know, the way to create the most value, for me, you know, stimulate the most change and employ the most people, is through staying in one industry and just hitting doubles year over year over year, and just learning it, figuring out what works, what doesn't, and gaining the customer's trust.
Longevity is credibility.
Yeah. Be around for the long haul.
No, that resonates for sure. So help me walk this back. So you went to school in Ivy. Most people that go to business school are doing that to go into a fast track career in business and in some big corporation. At what point did you decide to pivot and say, you know, I'm not going to follow the stereotypical path here?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know what the heck I was doing.
There was no plan.
I went to Western. I thought I was going to be a doctor. I quickly realized I really didn't jive with the science type people in first year.
Yeah.
I was having too much fun, you know, with the other guys in my floor in my residence. I wasn't going to class, just having a good time. And I remember, I got into Ivy for no other reason than on the first day of school, my SOF said to me, "Oh, you seem like a smart guy. You've got a personality. You must be going to Ivy." And I said, "No, I'm going to be a doctor." And so, well, I guess, you know, if he says that smart kids go to Ivy, if I can get in, I might as well go to Ivy.
And you applied?
So I applied. I get into Ivy, and you know, I just wasn't cut with the McKinsey cloth or the banking cloth. But I said, you know what, I'll get a consulting job. So I went and I worked at one of the smaller consulting shops that first year, between third and fourth year, first and second year Ivy. And whatever, I think they paid me $1,000 a week or something. But at that time, I launched the Western Reunion Party, an event which went on for 4 or 5 years. And I made something like $5,000 off the event. And every day when I was sitting at my desk during that summer internship, I kept thinking about my own gigs. I was really the worst employee ever. I just realized I wasn't cut out to work for someone else. So then, you know, at some point, my dad kept saying, "Oh, go get one of those sales jobs. Go make $100 grand doing sales." I just looked myself in the mirror and I said, you know what, like, I'm a shitty employee. I love building things. You know, I've been building things my whole life. So let's figure out what I'm going to do.
Self-awareness is key, for sure. Yeah, I can totally resonate with that, because, I mean, even when I had started in my career, because that was the best advice I was given, I had immigrant parents, so I had two options, engineer or doctor, or dead.
Yeah.
So we took engineering because it was only 4 years.
Go be an engineer. Go be a lawyer. It's funny enough. I have a twin sister. She's a doctor.
There you
Hopefully
go.
she sees this.
So that path, working what I thought was the fast track path, and I was grateful. I had a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge, but I was still doing the promotion stuff years in, and it was like in one weekend you make, even as 4 or 5 years into school, in one weekend you make $4,000 or $5,000 cash money, right? Like you're sitting there and you're like, that's like 3 weeks after tax.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there and you're like, it demotivates you. And maybe in some ways it motivates you because there isn't the golden handcuffs that is demotivating you on the flip side, right? It's all about balance. Now that the way you put it actually kind of flipped it on me, and I'm like, maybe that was like a godsend. But yeah, there was this demotivation that I was working hard on what I was supposed to do based on my schooling, based on what society wants, but I'm not fully alive in here. I mean, the nightlife thing died because I wasn't fully alive being with 20-year-olds when I was almost 30 in a club on Sunday night when I had meetings on Monday morning.
Yeah.
Like that kind of got old too. But there was definitely this drive, like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm in control. And if we fail, we can pivot and double down and try it again. But I have no one to blame but myself.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's scary, but it was actually more exciting than anything else. Always. And that's always been sort of my drive. Like when you're talking about, starting young, like I remember my first job delivering the penny saver. And then I was like, you know what? They're paying me nothing, but I can get other kids to do this and I could subcontract them. And pennies on pennies can still be dollars. And like literally, like the way I was thinking, I laugh at it now, but back then I was just like, no man, I could do the whole neighborhood. I can't do it myself.
Yeah.
Like, hey guys, they're gonna pay me like 2 cents. I'll pay you 1 cent, but I have the contact. You don't have to do any paperwork.
Yeah.
There's value there. And that thought process was always there. Like, how can I figure out a system or structure to scale this? And I think that's something that's, now that as you're talking, is resonating with me. And I think for people, if they want to do self-reflection, whether they took action or not, they probably want to reflect on why they didn't take action if they didn't. But I think if you have entrepreneurial tendencies, at some point you've had those drives.
Sure, yeah.
And I don't think it's something that is so much taught as it is just intrinsically part of your personality. You either want it or you don't. Like for me, it's very binary. I don't know how you feel about that. Like if that's truth for you or not.
Yeah, I think, the whole is entrepreneurship, hereditary or genetic. Or can it be taught? I think the basic, principles of entrepreneurship can certainly be taught. But to some extent, I think we are who we are. We are who we are, and there's no exception out there. Nobody has built anything fantastic without hard work. Even if you come from mountains and mountains and mountains of money, they may have made money, but they haven't built
something that withstood the test of time, kind of thing. Legacy.
Yeah, it's funny though that you bring up events, because events, in some extent, haunt me.
Really?
Yeah. So. They were really good to me financially.
Oh, yeah. You're preaching to the choir.
Yeah, and I came out of whatever. I was 25 years old. I had $50,000 in debt when I came out of university, and when I was 25 or 26, I had $500,000 sitting in my bank account, free and clear, 90% of it from the event space. So really good to me. But one, I got burnt on some big shows. Lost in the range of $40,000 on a show that was actually sold out and got canceled before it started. And to me, that boom and bust wasn't a valid business model. But two, what I really struggled with all through the events process was I was insecure and felt I wasn't putting that IB degree to use. It was below where I should have been.
So is that societal, or is that your own hang-ups, or was that like close friends that were saying that? Like where was that?
I mean, I think it was primarily just my own perception. And funny enough, I'm trying to remember who pointed this out, and I don't even know the man's name, but someone pointed out to me the richest man in the world actually is in the conference business. I don't know if there's any validity to that, but someone has pointed that out to me. But where I'm going with all of this is, so I came up with this theory that there's succession planning issues in Canada, and bought these chemical companies, and we're doing a good job running them, and I think we've made them more profitable, and we're adding value, and I think the future is very bright. But having seen the Entrepreneurship Society kind of evolve over the last 5 years.
Has it been 5 years?
Yeah. And that's a whole other story. It's really been a year, but we started 5 years ago. If you want to get into that, we can. I'll give you the backstory on that. But I just have a natural strength at putting on events. And there's people, all my peers and stakeholders are saying this to me. You have a unique ability to connect people and come up with unique business models for events and leverage this person to build that, etc. And one thing I ask myself is, that whole insecurity that I had around the events world, should I have just stuck to events? The reality of it is, whatever I do, as long as I do one or two things, I will fully figure out the sanitation business by the time I'm 50. Okay, I'm 33, I've got a ton of time.
Yeah.
But I ask myself, should I be thinking more about that events business? We've been doing it, at least I've been doing it on a smaller scale since I was 19.
Yeah. I remember how we started. Went in there, Barking Frog. Walked in there, we were just super excited, young. And I remember
we turned that place around, man. We should have got shares. We should have got shares in that place. Made the real money.
You hear that, Cam? We should have had shares. But I remember,
and they kept decreasing our rates once they realized they could get any promoter in there and fill the place.
Yeah, until we went to the next shiny place. But I remember walking in there, and that was the conversation. I remember we were just young, excited. We're like, hey, we're going to be partying like all through university, right? Oh yeah, for sure, we're going to be. And I see these kids sitting just popping bottles like in the booth. And in my head, I'm like, the only two possibilities are they're doing something illegal or daddy's money. Because in my world, there was no other possibility. I didn't know what promotion was. So I like walked into this booth. I'm like, won't say who they were, but I'm like, hey, I'm Sam, how are you? Like, just naively walking into their booth. They're like, yeah, who's this guy? After 5 minutes, we're chatting. They're like, yeah, this is our party. I'm like, what do you mean this is your party? He's like, yeah, that's our DJ. These are our friends. All this liquor's free. Like, just bragging. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, how does this work? There's a business model?
I spent $300 last night, plus $100 in food. And I got kicked out of my booth.
It's like, I was 19. We spent $20 in pre-drink before. But like literally, we're in this, I'm sitting here and I'm like, after 5 minutes, I come back and I'm like, hey, I found out we can either get paid to party or we can pay to party. And I'm like, what do you guys think? Like, naive question. They're like, oh, for sure. And then Nico was like, hey, I have this company called Tonight.com from Colombia. They're expanding into North. We can buy the Canadian. Like, instantly, there was like a business plan on a napkin within like 5 minutes. And like, I'm like, this is cool because I'm pretty sure we can do it better than those guys because they're literally partying and I'm seeing it as a business. I'm like, I don't even care if no one knows who I am. All I want to know is like, do we have a cash flow? Do we have a strategy to execute on it? Like, I was the guy counting money in the back there. Like, whose parties? Doesn't matter. Just count the money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I totally hear what you're saying on the ups and downs. But tell me, you know, you lost 40,000, but how's that different than you losing the 200,000 deal? Like, there's ups and downs in any business, isn't there? Like, how did one impact you more than the other?
I guess I just wanted something more stable, as opposed to something, and I don't mean stable, a guaranteed paycheck, but something, you know, that special event business, doing 3 or 4 of them a year, and having so many eggs in those baskets, that was scary. You know, sure, we'll hire someone, and not only do we not get an ROI, we lose money, or we'll buy a machine and it doesn't turn out, or anything else, but you still have the whole business, which is pumping stable cash flow, ideally 12 months of the year.
Got it.
And you know,
micro bursts versus 2 or 3 or 4.
Yeah. But going back to, you know, my thoughts and how people should be thinking about entrepreneurship, etc. So I'm sitting at an Entrepreneurship Society event on M&A about 3 months ago, and there's a very successful VC there, named VC/private equity investor named Gershon. And he's very rare in that he worked for a significant metal business, and the owner of that funded him to go out and both start a VC and a private equity shop in one. So he's investing on the PE side in stable cash flow, chemical type businesses like mine, but he's also got VC money to play the venture game, you know, trying to hit the home run, pre-revenue, 100 million valuation type world. And, you know, he made a comment where he said, I'm not really into that venture tech business where you strike out 95% of the time, you break even on 4 and hit a home run on 1. He said, but what I'm really interested in Toronto are service companies for that high risk, high reward tech sector.
Interesting.
And to me, I thought to myself, so am I. But I never really conceptualized it and put it in words the same way he did. To me, that was so simple, but game changing at the same time to communicate it that way. Because the Entrepreneurship Society attracts the top tech founders in the country. You know, you name it, they've come through our programming. Virage Sale, Shopify, Wealth Simple, whoever else, okay? You know, the guys that are doing the B rounds, the $50, $60 million rounds. And so for a while, just to, you know, have that reality check, I went out and I started surveying my peers who are in tech. And some of the really good ones, you know, who have raised $40 and $50 million. And my question was, statistically speaking, if I spend the rest of my life in the chemical industry, or I try to be a startup guy, where am I going to, you know, both create more wealth and create a bigger company? Every single one of them, with no exception, said statistically speaking, and there are exceptions, some of them are exceptions, statistically speaking, you're going to build something far more superior, create more shareholder value in the non-sexy, traditional chemical business.
Yep. It's stable. It's market fundamentals. Like, it blows my mind when people are so excited that they raised a round and they still in their pre-revenue. I mean, I get why the economy is going in, because people are trying to win the lottery by investing in them. But it blows my mind when they get excited about that, because it's like, you haven't actually proved anything. You've just given away a part of your company, and you haven't made any money.
Yeah, and it's hard from an entrepreneur standpoint not to have a little bit of FOMO. And when you're seeing whoever on the front page of Forbes having just closed a B round of 30, 40, 50, even $70 million today.
Yeah, yeah.
But at some point, you got to come back to business principles and
Yeah.
say, you know, what's it really about? It's boom and bust. Hey, you've got that raise. You go and you hire 200 people,
Yeah.
and chances are you might be laying them all off
Yeah.
and starting something else
Yeah.
in 2 years.
Yeah.
Anyway, really interesting point to me. I'm not really into the venture game, but I'm into tech services who support those venture companies.
Interesting.
To me, that was really cool.
Interesting.
A fantastic
Yeah,
point.
because no matter whether it's 1% or 2% that succeed, 100% are going to need the services.
Yeah, and when these tech companies have such significant injections,
Yeah.
they have so much money they have to spend so quickly. Their VCs, their investors are spend. And so they drive market rate of everything up. Engineers, office rent, decor, all the sex appeal that's in that office.
Yeah.
And you know, by default, you would think the tech services that you know, modest under the radar Gershon is offering to those tech companies.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. Cool. This was actually really insightful, Billy. We went in a totally different direction, but I actually really found it intriguing. I hope a lot of people are going to find this thought-provoking. To sort of summarize and just bring it back to make sure that we're giving them bang for their buck for the target demographic that's watching this.
Yeah.
If someone was sitting in that seat today, maybe newly out of school, or more likely based on who's watching this, a few years into their career, their profession, they've spent, you know, significant time, energy, accolades, you know, social capital into building their identity into something, but they're not happy. They're not fundamentally, statistically, majority are disengaged. Mm-hmm. And they're sitting in that location and they're listening to, you know, these stories of all these different types of entrepreneurs and how they started. What would be one piece of advice you could give them to help give them sort of the nugget of what should they ask themselves, what action should they take next to be able to sort of open that possibility for themselves of what's next for them?
One, figure out how to put food on the table for yourself without the man. And two, it's not about the idea. It's about execution. So tying into that, if you don't have an idea, just start making money off what you're passionate about.
That's awesome.
And I'm not saying that has to be your business. You don't have to be in a business you're passionate about. You can be passionate about building something.
Yeah.
But if you don't have an idea, start there. Figure out a way to monetize it.
Logical. Love it. Awesome, Billy.
It was
really
cool.
Appreciate it.
I'm glad we did this.
Yeah, man, me too.
And you know, to everyone out there, we need more business owners in the bricks and mortar traditional business space. So, you know, hopefully you'll join us at Qwatro Royal Pack.
Love it.